In this documentary, you will meet 28 people, including scientists and policemen, who claim to have seen a ghost. And the apparitions will be recreated exactly as they describe them. You can decide for yourself whether or not the ghosts are real. But your guide will be a scientist who has devoted many years to researching such things as hauntings. He is a depth psychologist who moved to Australia 25 years ago after objecting to the system of apartheid in South Africa. He became a senior lecturer in abnormal and therapeutic psychology at the University of New England in New South Wales and has degrees in psychology, the arts, and education. But he was also one of the first people in the world to qualify in parapsychology, the recognized scientific study of the supernatural. Dr. Maurice Marsh is no ordinary ghost hunter.
You know, there's no doubt that people do actually see ghosts. Hundreds of ordinary, everyday Australians from all walks of life have seen them. I found that about 1 in 5 of my students had had some kind of psychic experience. Of course, there are many different kinds of ghosts. Poltergeists, some appear to be the spirits of dead people, others again the telepathic projection of people's thoughts, and some appear to exist merely in a sort of time warp. Those are only some of the possibilities. But let's start with the kind of ghost that we've all heard about, and that's the apparition that traditionally haunts Old English castles. You might be surprised to hear that Australia, although a relatively young society, has what might be called historic haunts.
Some believe that ghosts are the tortured souls of people long dead, and are spirits condemned to haunt the places where they suffered or sinned in life. If that is true, then there can be no better place to look than Port Arthur convict settlement in Tasmania, a place once described as hell on earth. More than a century ago, shiploads of convicts, men, women, and children, were transported here from England for crimes which could be as petty as stealing a loaf of bread. At Port Arthur, these prisoners were often subjected to the most inhuman treatment imaginable, chained for weeks at a time, forbidden to speak, whipped, or even hanged for their misdemeanors. Death was often the only escape from the tyranny of British colonial law. Port Arthur was guarded by armed sentries and savage bulldogs chained together on a narrow isthmus separating the prison from the mainland. Convicts were forced to suffer or die here, not in their hundreds, but in their thousands. And many people who now work in the gloomy ruins of Port Arthur believe that ghosts haunt the settlement. The building with the most haunted reputation is the Parsonage, erected in 1842 by order of the Colonial Secretary. The Parsonage and all other historic buildings in the old convict settlement are now being restored by the Tasmanian government as the Port Arthur Conservation Project. These building contractors used to believe that ghosts are invented by people with wild imaginations. But their attitude changed dramatically when they were given the job of renovating the old parsonage. The men lived several hours' drive away in Launceston, and so they decided to sleep overnight in the parsonage during the contract period.
It was quite often that as we were coming on down the back section there, we could hear this knocking noise, but to me it sounded as though it was coming from the roof. And I wasn't the only one that heard it. At different stages, we all heard it.
When I first came down here, it all sort of was a bit of a joke between all the blokes, you know, and by the time we left the place, it was no longer a joke. It got pretty serious.
We'd just suddenly go cold, and you could feel the cold coming through you.
At this stage, did you believe in ghosts?
No. No, I never ever believed in ghosts at all.
What was the most dramatic thing that happened to you then?
Well, there was one night I came down from the hotel, we had tea, and we were walking, well, I was by myself, I was walking down from the hotel, and went through the kitchen and went to the room where I was sleeping. And I went to put the light on. And as I put the light on, I just got this glimpse of this image of a woman in the corner. I could see right through. I could see the wall behind her and my bed. You know, I just said, well, you're seeing things, you know. And I tried to convince myself that it was my mind. There was a light probably as I switched the light on. But as I started to undress to go to bed, I took my overalls off. I just taken the straps off and I was standing by the fire, and all of a sudden the curtains came flying off the wall. I never believed in ghosts, and I still sometimes think, well, perhaps I was seeing things, but I still think about the curtains. I mean, there's no way they could have come off like they did.
Mike Smith's description of a sudden drop in temperature, an unexplained chill in the atmosphere, is something noticed by many other witnesses just before a ghost appears. The next witness, Craig Goodwin, describes a peculiar experience which scientists call sleep paralysis. It's a terrifying phenomenon, also known as the hag effect, which temporarily paralyzes its victims with the sensation that a ghost is sitting on their chest, trying to suffocate them. Psychologists estimate that about 1 in every 7 people have had the experience, and you will find it repeated in other haunted houses.
On this particular night, I was in bed asleep, and I don't normally wake up during the night anyway. And when I realised that I was awake, the brain more or less told the rest of the body to sit up, sort of thing. And that was it. I couldn't move, you know. It was like as if I was just paralysed.
He sort of looked like he was trying to get away. He sort of had his hands coming up in the front of him. As I put the light on, I could see the shadow of him doing it beforehand, but when I put the light on, as soon as I put the light on, he sort of comes straight up on the bed and he was trying to strangle me.
Many people will dismiss the builder's story as nonsense and say they jumped at shadows after working themselves into a state of fear over the old building. But they're not the only ones to report ghostly happenings at the parsonage. And phantoms seem to have haunted the same site for at least 112 years.